The spotlight was warm on her face as 17-year-old Anna stepped onto the stage. The Vienna concert hall was packed with over 2,000 people, all there to hear her play. She was the youngest pianist ever invited to perform with the famous Vienna Orchestra. Her black dress sparkled under the lights as she walked to the grand piano. Anna had been playing piano since she was 4 years old. Her grandmother first taught her simple songs on an old piano in their small apartment. By age 8, she was winning competitions. At 12, she gave her first professional concert. Now at 17, she was living her dream. The audience went completely silent as Anna placed her fingers on the keys. Then magic happened. The music flowed from her hands like water from a fountain. Every note was perfect. Every emotion reached straight to the hearts of everyone listening. When she finished, the entire hall erupted in applause. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering for almost 10 minutes. That night changed everything for Anna. Suddenly, everyone wanted her to play at their concert halls. She traveled to Paris, London, New York, and Tokyo. Rich people paid thousands of dollars just to hear her perform. Music magazines put her picture on their covers. She had everything a young musician could dream of. For 6 years, Anna lived like a queen. She stayed in the finest hotels and ate at the best restaurants. Her manager handled all the business while she focused on what she loved most, making beautiful music. She owned a piano that cost more than most people's houses. Life was perfect, but sometimes life has other plans. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in November. Anna had just finished a concert in Chicago and was driving to her hotel. She was tired but happy. The audience had loved her performance of Beethoven that night. As she stopped at a red light, she was thinking about her next concert in Boston. Then everything went black. A drunk driver ran the red light and crashed straight into her car. The impact was so strong that it flipped her car twice before it finally stopped. When the ambulance arrived, Anna was unconscious and bleeding heavily. She woke up 3 days later in the hospital. Her whole body was in pain, but the worst part was her left wrist. It was completely shattered. The doctors had done emergency surgery, putting metal plates and screws to hold the bones together. "Will I be able to play piano again?" was the first thing Anna asked when she could finally speak. The doctor looked uncomfortable. "We'll do our best, but the damage is severe. You'll need months of physical therapy, and even then your hand might never work the same way." Those words hit Anna harder than the car crash itself. Without piano, who was she? What was her purpose in life? The next few months were the hardest of Anna's life. She had 3 more surgeries on her wrist. Each time, the doctors hoped to restore more movement, but progress was slow. Physical therapy was painful and frustrating. Her left hand, which used to dance across piano keys like magic, could barely hold a cup of coffee. During her recovery, Anna learned some harsh truths about the music business. Her manager called less and less. Concert bookings were canceled one by one. The classical music world, which had once celebrated her as their golden child, quickly moved on to the next young talent. "People want perfection," her manager finally told her during what would be their last phone call. "Even if you can play again, will you be as good as before? Can you risk disappointing audiences who expect the best?" That conversation broke Anna's heart completely. She realized that in the world of classical music, there was no room for weakness or imperfection. She was no longer the wonder girl who could do no wrong. She was just another pianist with a disability. The medical bills piled up quickly. Insurance covered some costs, but not everything. Anna had to sell her expensive piano first, then her jewelry, then her fancy apartment in the city. Each sale felt like losing another piece of her former self. A year after the accident, Anna found herself in a small town called Millbrook. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and nothing exciting ever happened. She had moved there because the rent was cheap and she needed time to figure out what to do with her life. Anna got a job at a local restaurant called Murphy's Diner. She had never worked in food service before, and everything was new and difficult. Her injured hand made it hard to carry heavy plates. She was slow at taking orders and often made mistakes with the cash register. The other waitresses were kind but clearly wondered what someone like her was doing in a place like this. The work was exhausting and the pay was terrible, but Anna needed every dollar she could get. She worked double shifts whenever possible, serving coffee and burgers to truck drivers and local farmers. It was a far cry from the glamorous concert halls where she used to perform. Anna's new apartment was tiny, just one room with a small kitchen and bathroom. The walls were thin, and she could hear her neighbors' conversations and television shows. There was no piano, of course. She couldn't afford one, and even if she could, what was the point? Her damaged hand would never let her play the way she used to. The hardest part was the silence. For most of her life, Anna's days had been filled with music. She used to practice for hours, losing herself in beautiful melodies. Now her evenings were quiet and empty. Sometimes she would catch herself moving her fingers as if playing an invisible piano, but she would quickly stop, embarrassed by the habit. People in Millbrook knew Anna had come from somewhere else, but they didn't know about her past as a famous pianist. She preferred it that way. It was easier than explaining how she had fallen so far from grace. She was just another person trying to make ends meet in a small town. Sometimes, late at night, Anna would lie in her small bed and remember what her life used to be like. The applause, the beautiful music, the feeling of sharing something magical with thousands of people. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else entirely. The confident, talented young woman who had conquered the world's greatest concert halls seemed like a character from a movie, not her actual past. 3 years had passed since the accident when Anna's life took another difficult turn. Murphy's Diner was struggling financially. The owner, an elderly man named Joe, had been trying to keep the restaurant open despite fewer and fewer customers each month. The new highway bypass had taken most of the truck driver business to the other side of town. One cold Friday morning, Joe gathered all the employees in the empty dining room. His eyes were red and tired. "I'm sorry, folks," he said quietly. "I can't make payroll this week. I'm going to have to close the diner." Anna felt her world crashing down again. She had been barely surviving on her waitress salary, and now even that was gone. She had $43.67 in her bank account, and her rent was due in 5 days. That weekend, Anna walked around Millbrook looking for any kind of work. She applied at the grocery store, the gas station, and even the laundromat. But in a small town during hard times, jobs were scarce. Everyone told her the same thing. They would keep her application on file and call if anything opened up. On Sunday evening, Anna sat in her tiny apartment wondering what she was going to do. She could call her parents and ask for help, but they were retired and living on a small pension. She could try to move to a bigger city, but she had no money for the security deposit on a new apartment. As she was thinking about her limited options, Anna heard something through her thin walls. Her neighbor was watching a documentary about street musicians in New York City. The program showed people playing instruments in subway stations and parks, earning money from donations by passers-by. Anna had seen street musicians before but had never really thought about what they were doing. Now the idea stuck in her mind. She could play piano, not as well as before, but she could still make music. Maybe, just maybe, she could earn enough money to survive until she found a real job. The more Anna thought about it, the more desperate the idea seemed. But what choice did she have? She remembered seeing an old piano in the town square. The city had put it there a few years ago as part of some community improvement project. Most of the time, it sat empty and unused. Anna had walked past that piano dozens of times but had never stopped to look at it closely. It was weathered and clearly hadn't been maintained well. Some of the keys were chipped and she suspected it was badly out of tune. But it was a piano, and if she was going to try street performing, it was her only option. The decision scared her more than she wanted to admit. Street performing meant putting herself out there, asking strangers for money, admitting how far she had fallen. It meant risking rejection and humiliation from people who might recognize her from her previous life. But with her rent due and no other options in sight, Anna realized she had no choice. That night she made a small cardboard sign with a black marker. Playing for food money. Anything helps. She practiced what she would say if anyone asked her questions. She tried to prepare herself mentally for the possibility that no one would stop to listen, or that people might laugh at her. Anna barely slept that Sunday night. Tomorrow she would swallow her pride and try something she had never imagined doing. The girl who had once performed for presidents and royalty was about to become a street musician, hoping to earn enough coins to buy groceries. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Anna woke up that Monday morning with a knot in her stomach. She had barely slept, tossing and turning all night thinking about what she was about to do. The idea of playing piano in public for the first time in 3 years terrified her. But with only $43 to her name and rent due in 4 days, she had no choice. She made herself a simple breakfast of toast and instant coffee, probably one of the last meals she could afford until she figured something out. Her hands were shaking as she held the coffee cup. Part of it was from nervousness, but part of it was from the cold. Her tiny apartment had poor heating, and November in Millbrook was getting harsh. Anna looked at herself in the small bathroom mirror. Her face was thinner than it used to be, and there were dark circles under her eyes from worry and poor sleep. Her hair, which used to be professionally styled for concerts, was now pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked like what she was, a person who had been struggling for too long. Before leaving, Anna picked up the cardboard sign she had made the night before. The words, "playing for food money, anything helps," looked embarrassing in the morning light. She almost threw it away several times, but each time she remembered her empty bank account and forced herself to keep it. The walk to the town square felt like the longest walk of her life. Millbrook was a small place, and the town square was just a few blocks from her apartment. But every step felt heavy with shame and fear. Anna kept telling herself that this was temporary, just until she could find a real job. She was doing what she had to do to survive. When Anna reached the town square, her heart sank a little. The piano looked even worse than she remembered. It was an old upright piano that had clearly seen better days. The white keys were yellowed and chipped. Some of the black keys were missing entirely. The wooden case was scratched and faded from years of weather exposure. Anna sat down on the wobbly bench and gently pressed a few keys. As she had expected, the piano was terribly out of tune. Several keys stuck when pressed, and others made no sound at all. This instrument was barely functional, certainly nothing like the perfect concert grand piano she was used to, but it was what she had to work with. Anna placed her cardboard sign next to the piano and took a deep breath. It was early morning, and only a few people were walking through the square on their way to work. Most of them looked like they were in a hurry, focused on their phones or rushing to catch buses. She started with something simple, a basic melody that most people would recognize. Her fingers felt stiff from the cold and from months of not playing regularly. Her injured left hand ached as she tried to make the unfamiliar movements. The sound coming from the broken piano was far from beautiful, but it was music. The first hour was humbling. People walked past Anna as if she wasn't there. A few glanced in her direction, but no one stopped to listen. No one dropped any money in the small box she had placed beside the piano. Anna started to wonder if this idea was completely hopeless. Around 9 o'clock, an elderly woman stopped and listened for a few minutes. When Anna finished the song, the woman smiled kindly and dropped 2 quarters into the donation box. "That was lovely, dear," she said before continuing on her way. Those 50 cents felt like a victory to Anna. Someone had actually listened and appreciated her music enough to give money. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As the morning went on, Anna's confidence grew slightly. She played simple songs that people might recognize, old folk tunes, basic classical pieces, and popular melodies from movies. Her technique was rusty, and the broken piano made everything sound rough, but she was making music again. By noon, Anna had collected a grand total of $3.47. It was mostly small change from people who seemed to feel sorry for her, rather than being impressed by her playing. One businessman had dropped a dollar bill while talking loudly on his phone, probably without even listening to the music. The small amount of money was disappointing, but what hurt more were the looks Anna was getting. Some people stared at her with pity, as if she was some kind of tragic figure. Others looked embarrassed, as if her presence made them uncomfortable. A few seemed annoyed, as if she was disturbing the peace of their quiet town square. Anna was starting to feel foolish. Here she was, a former world-class pianist playing a broken piano for pocket change while people treated her like a beggar. The gap between her current reality and her past success felt impossibly wide. Around 1 o'clock, things got worse. A group of teenagers on their lunch break from the local high school gathered near the piano. They were loud and full of energy, the way teenagers always are. At first, Anna thought they might be interested in the music, but soon it became clear they were more interested in making jokes. "Hey, lady," one of them called out. "That piano sounds terrible. Are you sure you know how to play it?" The others laughed, and Anna felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She tried to ignore them and keep playing, but their comments got louder and more pointed. "Maybe if you played better songs," People would actually give you money. Another teenager said, "Yeah, this sounds like my little sister when she first started taking lessons," added a third. Anna's hands started to shake, and she hit several wrong notes. The teenagers laughed even harder at her mistakes. She wanted to stop playing and run away, but she also didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her quit. "Can you take requests?" one of them asked mockingly. "How about something from this century?" Anna tried to play a more modern song, but her nervousness made her performance even worse than usual. The combination of the broken piano, her rusty technique, and her anxiety created sounds that were far from professional quality. The teenagers eventually got bored and moved on, but their laughter still echoed in Anna's ears. She felt smaller and more defeated than she had since the darkest days after her accident. Was this really what her life had become? Was she destined to be a source of amusement for bored teenagers? The afternoon brought more challenges. The temperature dropped and Anna's fingers became stiff from the cold. The injured hand, which always hurt more in cold weather, started to throb painfully. She had to stop every few minutes to flex her fingers and try to warm them up. Even worse, it started to snow lightly. The flakes weren't heavy enough to drive people indoors, but they made everything feel more miserable. Anna's thin jacket wasn't warm enough for sitting outside for hours, and she started shivering uncontrollably. A few more people dropped coins into her box throughout the afternoon, but most ignored her completely. By 4 o'clock, as the light was starting to fade, Anna had earned a total of $7.32. It was more money than she had started the day with, but it wasn't nearly enough to solve her problems. As Anna packed up her sign and prepared to leave, she felt defeated. $7 wouldn't pay her rent. It wouldn't even buy her groceries for more than a day or two. At this rate, she would need to play for months just to earn enough money to survive. And that was assuming people continued to give her anything at all. Walking home through the light snow, Anna felt like she had hit rock bottom. She had swallowed her pride, faced public humiliation, and spent hours in the cold, all for less than $8. Her former life as a celebrated pianist felt like a cruel joke. How had she fallen so far? That evening, Anna sat in her cold apartment eating a can of soup for dinner. It was one of the last few cans in her cupboard, and she wasn't sure when she would be able to buy more food. Her body ached from sitting on the hard piano bench all day, and her injured hand was particularly painful from the unaccustomed exercise. She tried to be optimistic. Maybe tomorrow would be better. Maybe she would earn more money as she got more comfortable performing in public. Maybe someone would hear her playing and offer her a real job. But deep down, Anna was starting to lose hope. The next few days followed the same pattern. Anna would wake up early, force herself to eat a small breakfast, and walk to the town square with her cardboard sign. She would play for hours, earning a few dollars from kind strangers while enduring comments from people who saw her as entertainment or annoyance. Some days were slightly better than others. On Wednesday, a tourist visiting Millbrook gave her $5 and said she enjoyed the music. On Thursday, a local business owner dropped a $10 bill in her box and told her to keep up the good work, but most days were a struggle to earn enough money for basic necessities. Anna was learning the harsh realities of street performing. The weather affected everything. On sunny days, more people walked through the square, but on cold or rainy days, she was lucky to see anyone at all. Her location mattered too. When there were events happening elsewhere in town, the square would be empty for hours at a time. She was also learning about the unspoken rules of her new situation. Some people expected her to be grateful for any amount of money, no matter how small. Others seemed to think that giving her money entitled them to make requests or comments about her playing. A few treated her kindly, but many acted as if she was invisible, or worse, like she was bothering them by existing. The physical toll was significant too. Sitting outside for hours in cold weather was harder than Anna had expected. Her back ached from the poor posture required to play the broken piano. Saturday morning brought the kind of gray, cold weather that made everyone want to stay inside. Anna woke up feeling sick to her stomach, not from illness, but from worry. She had earned $35 during her first week of street performing, but her rent was due on Monday. She needed $150 more, and she only had 2 days to earn it. Anna forced herself to eat a small breakfast, knowing she needed energy for what could be a very long day. She had learned that weekends sometimes brought more people to the town square, especially if the weather wasn't too bad. Families might come out for walks, and visitors from nearby towns sometimes stopped by. But the gray sky didn't look promising. When Anna arrived at the square, she noticed that the old piano looked even more beaten up than usual. Someone had spilled something sticky on several of the keys, and there were new scratches on the wooden case. She spent a few minutes cleaning it as best she could with a tissue from her pocket. Anna set up her cardboard sign and began playing. Her fingers were stiff from the cold, and the piano sounded particularly awful that morning. Several more keys seemed to be sticking, making it almost impossible to play smoothly. But she pressed on, playing simple melodies and hoping for the best. The morning was slow. Only a few people passed through the square, and most of them hurried by without stopping. An elderly man dropped some coins in her box and nodded approvingly, but that was her only donation for the first 2 hours. Anna was starting to panic about how she would earn the money she desperately needed. Around 11 o'clock, things started to pick up slightly. More people began walking through the square, including some families with children. Anna noticed that the children often seemed interested in the piano, even if their parents quickly pulled them along. She started playing songs that kids might recognize from movies or TV shows. One little girl stopped and listened for a full song, clapping when Anna finished. Her mother smiled and put $1 in the donation box before they continued on their way. It was a small bright spot in what was shaping up to be a difficult day. But Anna's biggest challenge was yet to come. Around noon, a group of college students showed up in the square. They looked like they were from the small university in the next town over, probably in Millbrook, to grab lunch or just hang out. There were 5 or 6 of them, and they seemed to be in good moods, laughing and joking with each other. At first, Anna thought they might be good news. College students sometimes appreciated music, and they might have a few dollars to spare. She continued playing, hoping to catch their attention in a positive way. Instead, one of the students noticed her cardboard sign and started reading it out loud to his friends. "Playing for food money. Anything helps," he said, laughing. "Oh man, this is classic." The others gathered around to look, and Anna felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She tried to keep playing and ignore them, but their voices were getting louder. "Seriously, lady, what's your story?" one of them called out. "Are you actually homeless, or is this just like a weekend hobby?" Anna didn't know how to respond. She wasn't technically homeless yet, but she would be soon if she couldn't pay her rent. She decided to keep playing and hoped they would lose interest and move on. "The piano sounds terrible," another student observed. "Half the keys don't even work properly." "Maybe that's not the piano's fault," his friend replied, causing the whole group to laugh again. Anna hit a wrong note, which only made them laugh harder. She was getting flustered, and her playing was suffering because of her nervousness. The broken piano wasn't helping. It was genuinely difficult to make good music on such a damaged instrument. One of the students, who seemed to be the leader of the group, pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is going to be great content," he said. "Street performer fail compilation." Anna's heart sank. The last thing she wanted was to end up in some video online, being laughed at by thousands of strangers. She considered stopping and leaving, but she desperately needed the money. She had to keep trying. "Hey, can you play anything good?" the student with the phone asked. "Something that actually sounds like music?" The others encouraged him, clearly enjoying the situation. Anna realized they saw her as entertainment, not the kind of entertainment that deserved respect or payment, but the kind that was funny, because it was bad. "Come on," another student said. "Show us what you've got. Prove you're not just wasting everyone's time." Anna's hands were shaking now, partly from cold and partly from anxiety. She tried to play a simple classical piece, but her nervousness made her technique even worse than usual. The broken piano turned what should have been beautiful music into something that sounded harsh and unpleasant. The students were loving it. They made exaggerated faces at each wrong note and whispered comments to each other that Anna couldn't quite hear but knew weren't kind. Okay, the leader said, still holding his phone up to record. "Let me ask you something directly. What's the deal here? Are you actually a real musician, or are you just hoping people will give you money out of pity?" The question hit Anna like a slap. She stopped playing and looked up at the student. He was young, probably not much older than she had been when she was performing in the world's greatest concert halls. He had no idea who she was or what she had been through. Anna started to speak, then stopped. How could she explain? How could she tell them that she used to be someone completely different? Someone they would have respected instead of mocked? "She doesn't know," one of the other students said. This is too good. Wait, the leader said, an idea apparently occurring to him. Let's make this interesting. We'll give you $20, more money than you've probably made all day. But only if you can actually play something impressive, something that proves you're not just a total amateur. $20 was more than Anna had earned some entire days. It would help significantly toward her rent money. But she could tell from the way they were looking at her that they expected her to fail. This wasn't a genuine offer, it was a setup for more humiliation. What do you say? The student continued. $20 for one song that doesn't sound like a cat walking across the piano. Think you can handle that? Anna looked down at her hands. The left one was visibly different from the right, slightly twisted from the surgeries with scars visible on the wrist. These students had no idea what those scars represented or what it had cost her to even be able to use that hand at all. Come on, another student pressed. What have you got to lose? Either you play something decent and earn some real money, or you prove that you're just here wasting everyone's time. Anna felt a familiar anger rising in her chest. It was the same anger she had felt during those long months of physical therapy, when doctors told her she might never play again. The same anger she felt when her manager dropped her without even giving her a chance to prove she could still perform. The same anger that had sustained her through 3 years of rebuilding her life from nothing. But along with the anger came something else, a memory of who she used to be. Not the broken, struggling woman these students saw, but the artist who had once moved thousands of people to tears with her music. The pianist who had spent her entire life dedicated to her craft. Anna made a decision. If these students wanted to humiliate her, she would give them something to remember. If they wanted to record her, let them record something real. Fine, Anna said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. $20, awesome, the leader said, making sure his phone was positioned to get a good shot. This should be entertaining. What are you going to play for us? Anna didn't answer immediately. She was thinking about what she could do with this broken instrument and her damaged hand. She couldn't play the way she used to, but maybe that didn't matter. Maybe there was still music in her that these students, that anyone, had never heard before. She placed her hands on the yellowed, chipped keys and took a deep breath. For the first time in 3 years, Anna was about to play not because she needed money or because she had nothing else to do, but because she wanted to show someone what she was truly capable of. The students gathered closer, their phones ready to capture what they expected to be another moment of failure. They had no idea they were about to witness something extraordinary. Anna closed her eyes and began to play. What came out was not the simple, safe melodies she had been playing all week. Instead, she chose one of the most difficult pieces in classical piano literature, Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It was a piece that demanded technical perfection, emotional depth, and years of training to perform properly. But Anna didn't play it the way it was written. She couldn't with the broken piano and her injured hand. Instead, she adapted it, working around the missing keys and using her limitations as part of the performance. Where her left hand couldn't reach, she found other ways to create the harmony. Where keys didn't work, she made the silence part of the music. The effect was unlike anything the students had expected to hear. This wasn't the amateur playing they had been mocking. This was music of the highest caliber, played by someone who understood not just the technical aspects but the emotional heart of the piece. The laughter stopped immediately. The jokes and whispered comments fell silent. Even the phones. The silence that followed Anna's performance seemed to last forever. The college students stood frozen, their expressions completely changed from just minutes before. The young man who had been recording lowered his phone slowly as if he was still processing what he had just captured. I'm really sorry, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I had no idea you could play like that. Anna nodded but didn't speak immediately. She was still feeling the emotions from the performance. Relief, sadness, and something she hadn't felt in years. Pride in her musical abilities. For a few minutes, she had forgotten about her struggles and remembered who she really was beneath all the hardship. That was Chopin, wasn't it? Asked one of the other students, a young woman with glasses who looked like she might study music. But I've never heard it played like that before. It was different. Beautiful, but different. I had to adapt it, Anna explained, flexing her left hand unconsciously. This piano is missing keys in my hand. She trailed off, not sure how much she wanted to explain to these strangers. The group had grown larger during her performance. Other people walking through the square had stopped to listen, drawn by the unexpected beauty of the music coming from the broken piano. Now there were about 15 people gathered around, all looking at Anna with curious and respectful expressions. An elderly woman stepped forward from the crowd. She had tears in her eyes. "My dear," she said softly, "that was the most beautiful thing I've heard in years. The way you played, it spoke to my heart. How long have you been studying piano?" Anna felt a lump forming in her throat. "Most of my life," she managed to say. "It shows," the woman replied. "You have a gift. A real gift." The college student who had been recording put his phone away completely. "Look, I need to apologize again. We came here thinking, well, it doesn't matter what we thought. We were wrong. Completely wrong. We were being jerks," added another student bluntly. "That was incredible." "You're incredible." Anna could see the genuine regret in their faces. These weren't bad people. They were just young and had made assumptions based on what they saw on the surface. She had done the same thing herself when she was younger and successful, though she had never been cruel about it. "It's okay," Anna said. "I understand how it looked." "No, it's not okay," the first student insisted. He reached into his wallet and pulled out not just $20, but all the cash he had, about $60. "Here, this isn't enough, but it's what I have." The others quickly followed suit, pulling out whatever money they had with them. Soon Anna's donation box was fuller than it had ever been. But more important than the money was the way these young people were looking at her now, with respect and admiration instead of mockery. "Can I ask you something?" the music student said hesitantly. "Have you performed professionally?" "Because that level of skill, it doesn't come from just playing as a hobby." Anna hesitated. She hadn't talked about her past with anyone in Millbrook. It was easier to just be anonymous, to avoid the questions and the pity that came with explaining how far she had fallen. But something about this moment felt different. Maybe it was the way the music had reconnected her with her true self. Maybe it was seeing how these students had changed their attitude so completely. Or maybe she was just tired of hiding who she used to be. "Yes," Anna said quietly. "I used to perform professionally. Quite a lot, actually." The crowd leaned in, sensing there was more to the story. "I played with orchestras," Anna continued, her voice getting slightly stronger. "Big concert halls. I traveled around the world performing." "That was before what?" the elderly woman asked gently. Anna looked down at her hands. "Before my accident. Before everything changed." She told them about the car crash, though she kept the details brief. She explained about the surgeries and the long recovery. She didn't mention her former fame. Somehow that felt like too much to share. But she told them enough for them to understand why she was here, playing a broken piano in a small town square for food money. The crowd listened in complete silence. When Anna finished speaking, many of them looked angry, not at her but at the situation. At the unfairness of someone so talented being reduced to street performing just to survive. "That's terrible," one of the students said. "But also, I mean, you can still play amazingly. Couldn't you teach lessons or something? Work with a music school?" Anna had thought about that, of course. "It's complicated," she said. "The music world it's hard to explain. When you're not at the top anymore, when you're seen as damaged or unreliable, doors close. And in a small town like this, there aren't many opportunities." "But you're not damaged," the music student protested. "Different maybe, but not damaged. What you just played was more moving than most professional concerts I've been to." Anna felt tears starting to form in her eyes. It had been so long since anyone had spoken about her music with such genuine appreciation and understanding. The elderly woman stepped closer. "What's your name, dear?" "Anna," she replied. "Anna, I'm Dorothy. I used to teach music before I retired. I've heard a lot of pianists in my life, and what you have is special. Not just technical skill, though you clearly have that, but something deeper. Something that comes from real-life experience." Dorothy paused, looking thoughtful. "You know, there's someone you should meet. My friend Helen runs the music program at the community college in the next town. She's always looking for talented instructors, especially ones who can bring real-world experience to their students." "I don't know," Anna said uncertainly. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of thing." "Maybe not," Dorothy agreed. "But maybe it's worth thinking about. What you just shared with us, that's the kind of music that changes people." "It changed us." The college student who had been recording stepped forward again. Anna, I know this might seem weird, but would it be okay if I posted the video I took? Not the beginning part where we were being stupid, but the part where you played. People should hear this. Anna's first instinct was to say no. The idea of being on the internet, potentially being recognized, scared her. But then she thought about how the music had affected these people. Maybe there were others who needed to hear it too. I guess that would be okay, she said slowly. I'll only post the music, the student promised, and I'll be respectful about it. No jokes, no making fun, just your amazing performance. As the crowd began to disperse, people continued to drop money in Anna's box. But more than that, they offered words of encouragement and support. Several people asked if she played regularly, saying they would come back to listen. One man gave her his business card saying his daughter took piano lessons and might be interested in learning from someone with Anna's background. By the time everyone had left, Anna had earned more money in one afternoon than she had in her entire first week of street performing. But the money, while important, wasn't the most significant thing that had happened. For the first time in 3 years, Anna felt like herself again. Not the broken version of herself that she had become accustomed to, but the core of who she had always been, a musician who could touch people's hearts through her art. That evening, Anna sat in her small apartment looking at the money she had earned. It was enough to pay her rent with some left over for groceries. For the first time since losing her job at the diner, she wasn't worried about immediate survival. But more importantly, she was thinking about what Dorothy had said about the community college, and about the way the students had reacted to her music. Maybe there was a path forward that she hadn't considered. Maybe her story wasn't over. Maybe it was just entering a new chapter. Anna walked to the small window of her apartment and looked out at the town where she had been anonymously struggling for months. Suddenly, it didn't feel quite so lonely or hopeless. People here knew her now, not as a former celebrity, but as Anna, the pianist who could make broken things beautiful. Later that night, the college student posted the video online. He kept his promise, including only Anna's performance and adding a simple caption. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most unexpected places. This street performer absolutely blew us away today. Anna went to sleep that night not knowing that the video was already being shared rapidly across social media platforms. She didn't know that by morning, thousands of people would have watched her play Chopin on a broken piano in a small town square. She didn't know that her life was about to change again, in ways she couldn't have imagined. All she knew was that for the first time in years, she felt hope. Real hope that maybe, just maybe, there was still a place in the world for her music, and sometimes that's all the beginning requires. Not certainty about the future, but just enough hope to take the next step forward. The next morning would bring surprises that Anna couldn't have predicted. But that night, she slept peacefully for the first time in months, her hands finally free of the tension she had carried for so long. In her dreams, she was playing piano again, not for survival, not for money, but for the pure joy of making something beautiful in a world that desperately needed more beauty. Tomorrow would prove that sometimes the world is ready to receive that beauty, even from the most unexpected sources. Anna woke up Sunday morning feeling different than she had in months. For the first time since losing her job at the diner, she wasn't immediately worried about money or survival. The events of yesterday felt almost like a dream. The performance, the crowd's reaction, and most importantly, the feeling of being truly heard and appreciated for her music. She made herself a real breakfast for the first time in weeks. Eggs, toast, and coffee, using some of the money she had earned. As she ate, Anna thought about Dorothy's suggestion to contact her friend at the community college. The idea was both exciting and terrifying. Around 10 o'clock, Anna's quiet Sunday was interrupted by a knock on her door. She wasn't expecting anyone and rarely had visitors. When she opened it, she found Dorothy standing there with a warm smile and a plate of homemade cookies. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by," Dorothy said. "I got your address from Mrs. Peterson at the grocery store. Small towns, you know." Anna invited her in, grateful for the company. Dorothy looked around the small apartment without judgment, simply taking in Anna's modest living situation. "I've been thinking about yesterday," Dorothy said as they sat down with coffee and cookies. "About your music and about what you said regarding opportunities. I called my friend Helen this morning. Anna's heart began to race. You did? I hope that's okay, Dorothy continued. I told her about your performance yesterday. I may have gotten a little carried away describing how beautiful it was. She's very interested in meeting you. Before Anna could respond, Dorothy pulled out her phone. She's actually driving here today. She should arrive in about an hour. Today? Anna felt a mix of excitement and panic. But I'm not prepared. I don't have any resume or references or… Anna, Dorothy said gently. Yesterday you gave the most moving musical performance I've heard in decades. That's all the preparation you need. An hour later, there was another knock on Anna's door. This time it was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She introduced herself as Helen Rodriguez, director of the music program at Riverside Community College. Dorothy has told me wonderful things about your playing, Helen said as she sat down. But more than that, she told me about your story, about your perseverance and your ability to create beauty even in difficult circumstances. Helen had brought a small digital recorder with her. Would you be willing to play something for me? Dorothy mentioned there's a piano somewhere in the building. Anna led them to the community room where the old upright piano sat. It was in even worse condition than the one in the town square, but it would have to do. As she sat down at the bench, Anna felt nervous in a way she hadn't yesterday. This felt more formal, more like an actual audition. Play whatever feels right to you, Helen said encouragingly. Anna chose a piece by Bach, something that would showcase her technical skills while also allowing her to demonstrate how she could adapt to the piano's limitations. As she played, she noticed Helen listening not just with her ears but with her whole attention, the way only a true musician does. When Anna finished, Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. Dorothy was right. You have something special, Helen said. Not just technical ability, though that's clearly strong. But more importantly, you have the ability to communicate emotion through music. That's something you can't teach. Helen explained that the community college was always looking for adjunct instructors, especially ones who could work with adult learners and non-traditional students. Many of our students are people who are coming back to music later in life, or who are learning for the first time as adults. They need instructors who understand that musical journeys aren't always straightforward. I don't have a teaching degree, Anna said hesitantly. Your life experience is your teaching degree, Helen replied. Besides, we can help you get certified while you're working. What matters most is that you can inspire students and help them grow. Helen offered Anna a part-time position starting the following month. It wouldn't make her rich, but it would provide steady income and, more importantly, give her a chance to share her love of music with others. As Dorothy and Helen were leaving, Helen turned back. There's one more thing. We have a small recital hall at the college. It's nothing fancy, but it has a beautiful piano. I'd love for you to give a concert there sometime. Nothing formal or stressful, just a chance for you to share your music with people who will appreciate it. After they left, Anna sat in her small apartment trying to process what had just happened. In the space of 24 hours, her life had begun to transform. She thought about calling someone to share the news, but realized she didn't have anyone close enough in her life for that kind of call. That made her a little sad, but also determined to build new connections going forward. Monday morning brought another surprise. Anna woke up to find several missed calls and text messages on her phone. She rarely received calls from unknown numbers, so this was unusual. The first call was from a local newspaper reporter who had seen the video of Anna's performance online. It's gone viral, the reporter explained. Hundreds of thousands of views and climbing. People are calling it one of the most beautiful street performances they've ever seen. Anna was shocked. She had no idea the video had spread so widely. The reporter wanted to do a story about her, the talented street musician who had captured hearts around the internet. More calls followed throughout the day. A radio station wanted to interview her. A music blog wanted to write an article. Someone from a talent agency in the state capital wanted to discuss opportunities. Anna felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Part of her was excited. Recognition for her music was something she had missed desperately. But part of her was also scared. She had worked hard to rebuild her life quietly, and sudden fame felt dangerous. Dorothy stopped by again that afternoon, having heard about the viral video from several people in town. How are you handling all this? Dorothy asked, noticing Anna's somewhat frazzled state. I don't know, Anna admitted. It's exciting but also terrifying. What if people expect too much? What if I disappoint them? Dorothy sat down and took Anna's hands. Listen to me carefully. You've already proven that you can handle disappointment and come back from it. That's much harder than dealing with success. She was right, Anna realized. She had survived losing everything: her career, her health, her financial security. Managing good news should be easier than managing tragedy. Over the next few weeks, Anna's life continued to change rapidly. She accepted the teaching position at the community college and found that she loved working with students. Her adult learners brought a dedication and appreciation that reminded her why she had fallen in love with music in the first place. The viral video led to other opportunities. A music therapy program at the regional hospital asked her to perform for patients. A nursing home invited her to play monthly concerts. Local schools wanted her to speak to their music students about perseverance and following dreams. Anna realized that her accident and struggle, while painful, had actually made her a better musician and a better teacher. She understood now what it meant to lose something precious and fight to get it back. She could help others navigate their own musical challenges because she had faced her own. 3 months after that day in the town square, Anna gave her first formal concert in 4 years. It was in the small recital hall at Riverside Community College, just as Helen had suggested. The audience wasn't huge, maybe 60 people, but it included Dorothy, Helen, her new students, and several people from Millbrook who had supported her during her street performing days. Anna chose to play several pieces, including the Chopin ballade that had started everything, but she also premiered something new, a piece she had composed herself, inspired by her experience of losing and finding her musical voice again. As she played her original composition, Anna thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The accident that had seemed like the end of her story had actually been the beginning of a new chapter. She was no longer the perfect young prodigy who had taken the world by storm. Instead, she was something perhaps more valuable, an artist who understood that true beauty often comes from overcoming imperfection. When the concert ended, the audience gave Anna a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. But more meaningful than the applause were the conversations afterward. Students talked about how her teaching had helped them reconnect with their love of music. Community members shared how her performances had brought joy to their lives during difficult times. The college student who had recorded the original video was there too. He had driven down from his university specifically to hear Anna play in a proper concert setting. "I'm so glad I was there that day," he told her afterward. "Not because of the video or anything that came from it, but because I learned something important about not judging people based on appearances. You changed how I see the world." That comment meant more to Anna than all the online views and media attention combined. As Anna packed up her sheet music that night, Helen approached her with another opportunity. "There's a music festival next summer," Helen said. "It focuses on musicians who have overcome challenges to pursue their art. They want you to be one of the featured performers."